So, hello from RavenCon. I am reading from Be the Change, which is the fourth in the Menopausal Superhero series. The fifth and final one is on the way. And I was going to read the first chapter of this one today because, the beginning is a very good place to start. Going into it, I'm not sure if there's anything you have to know, but it might help to know that Patricia O'Neill is a lizard woman. As in, she transforms into a lizard-looking creature that is bulletproof and scary. The chapter is called Patricia's Not a Lightning Rod. Do we have to talk about this now? Patricia O'Neill flung herself behind a park bench as a streak of lightning flashed across the lawn, blackening the patch of grass where she'd been standing moments before. Reflexively, her scales thickened, strengthening her armored skin to something akin to rhinoceros flesh. Luckily, the new communications earpiece stayed in place through her transformations. Leonel could still hear her. "I'm kind of busy," Patricia managed to say. Standing near the center of the field, a slender black woman stretched her arms toward the sky. Wind swirled her hair despite the stillness of the day, and crackles of white light popped around her like small fireworks. It would have been beautiful if she weren't lashing out with deadly force at anyone who approached her. 2 agents had already been carted off the field. Patricia did not want to be next. While being bulletproof had its advantages, it also meant the Unusual Cases Unit, or UCU, tended to send Patricia in first. Bulletproof Lizard Woman played well in the press, even if the work could have been done by anyone in tactical gear. She was damn tired of being used as the biological equivalent of a tank. Bullet impacts still stung, and if the weapon were powerful enough, sometimes she bruised. She didn't know for sure how much her armored flesh would protect her if she took a hit from this lightning-flinging woman. So far, she'd managed not to get burned, but a nearby park bench hadn't made it through in one piece. Patricia considered her next move as the woman's hands began to glow with a bluish light again. "You coming?" she growled into the headset. The plan had been simple enough. She would draw the lightning-wielding woman's attention while Leonel and the rest of the agents took up positions behind her. Someone would trank her, and then they'd get her back to the UCU for containment. Not much different from relocating an angry bear that wandered into the picnic grounds, if bears shot lightning at you. But Patricia had been dodging the woman's attacks too long, and she was tiring. Ducking her head, she bent into a crouch. Running away had not proven effective. The woman was burning the grass and destroying the furniture and statuary. Time to go on the offensive. Patricia leapt from her hiding place, screaming a wordless battle cry, and ran toward the woman at full speed, the earth trembling beneath the heft of her fully transformed body, her vision reduced to blobs of color and movement. She'd tackle the woman and hope her scales would protect her from the worst of the electricity. The woman, apparently stunned by the sudden attack from the person she'd been flinging electricity at for several minutes, gaped, glowing hands at the ready. Patricia picked up speed and bent so she would strike her shoulder against the woman's middle. She was nearly there when her target slumped to the ground, collapsing in a heap. Patricia threw herself to the side, unable to stop her forward momentum and not wanting to trample the now unconscious woman. As she careened towards the tree line, Patricia hoped she wouldn't make the op-ed page again for destruction of public property during crime fighting. The gazebo had not been her fault. Then she collided with something. Not a tree, but nearly as solid. Something that exclaimed in Spanish when she barreled into it. Something that smelled suspiciously of spicy aftershave. After they skidded to a stop, Leonel's arm wrapped around Patricia's body like a tango dancer's. Leonel Fuerte Alvarez spun away from her with a dancing flourish and took a bow. "And you said you couldn't dance." Patricia grunted, bending at the waist to catch her breath. The man infuriated her, and she was damn glad he'd been there to catch her, but she'd never tell him that. "What took you so long?" "Ten un poco de paciencia, Patricia," he said. We had to get the civilians out of the way first." "You sure took your time about it. I was the one having to outrun lightning, you know." Dusting bits of dirt off his hand, Fuerte cocked his head at Patricia, concern pressing his mouth in a flat line, his ridiculous red shirt and gold mask shining in the sunlight. Sometimes his history showed. Looking at him, you'd never guessed he'd spent the first 48 years of his life as a woman, until Dr. Lou's soap had transformed him into a super strong man. But when angry or disappointed, the shadow of his former self loomed large. Though his eyebrows were hidden by the half-sun mask, Patricia could still tell one was raised. The raised eyebrow always went with the all-too-familiar arms crossed over the chest and the tapping booted foot. The complete set of Latina mother disapproval, Leonel style. Not in the mood for a lecture, she held up a hand. Come on, we'd better get back to the scene and see how we can help. The lightning woman lay on the grass. Someone had rolled her onto her back. Leonel turned her head gently to examine her face. Does she look familiar to you? Patricia knelt, a little awkwardly since her feet were still fully taloned. She guessed she must still be too full of adrenaline to pull her transformation back in. The woman looked to be somewhere between 40 and 50 years old, if one could judge by the small lines around her eyes and mouth. Maybe a little young for the bits of silver streaking through her bush of black curls. Dressed in ordinary clothing, blue jeans and a pink hoodie, nothing about her suggested the dangerous woman Patricia had engaged a few minutes before. She looked like someone's auntie who had fallen asleep watching clouds. It was hard to tell with the woman's eyes closed, but Patricia did think she may have seen her somewhere before. She stopped one of the blue jumpsuited agents moving around the scene. Do we have an ID? He pulled out his phone and knelt between the two heroes to show the profile of one Marietta Cooper, age 64, longtime resident of Springfield. Damn, she looked good for 64. There was hope for Patricia yet. The blue star in the corner of the screen marked the woman as someone the UCU had been monitoring for power manifestations, or as they called it amongst themselves, potential freakiness. The agent clicked the star for more information, and they read that Miss Cooper had low-level electrical powers, sometimes resulting in surges that blew out her apartment lights or destroyed her electronics. Low level, huh? Patricia huffed out a frustrated breath. Her electricity didn't feel low level when it singed my hair and stung my nose with ozone. The agent nodded. I guess something changed. A strange feeling rolled in Patricia's guts. Yeah, I guess something did. She got to her taloned feet, turning to make her way back to the transport. She'd gotten a few yards away before Leonel called after her. Wait! Patricia's shoulders slumped, spikes waggling. She really wasn't in the mood to talk about her lack of patience and the importance of being a team player. She wanted to get a shower and maybe pop in to see Susie since she'd missed their lunch date to handle this situation. Leonel stopped by her side. Well? Well, what? Patricia blinked at him. Twice, once with each set of eyelids. What about the bachelorette party? Yes, tonight after work, for Jessica Fly Girl Rourke, about to marry Walter Peoples, the head of research. She'd been teasing Leonel all morning, threatening not to attend. He'd been shocked at the idea that a bridesmaid would skip the celebration. They were arguing about it over comms when the fight kicked up a notch and they'd had to quit talking. Patricia sighed, feigning reluctance. All right, I'll come to Jessica's bachelorette party. She'd always intended to go anyway. Her girlfriend Susie would hardly have allowed her to skip the girls' night celebration of their friend and colleague. Plus, Susie dancing? She wouldn't miss an opportunity to watch Susie when the music took her. Too sexy. But it had been fun to let Fuerte think she would refuse. A wide grin spread across Fuerte's face, but before he could say anything, Patricia raised a green scaly hand. But I'm not wearing matching t-shirts, or a stupid hat, or a lei. Fuerte smacked the hand down on her shoulder, avoiding the yellow spikes sprouting from her armored flesh. That's all right, we're getting tiaras. He turned and started jogging towards the UCU van, leaving her to follow. She called after him, a tiara is still a hat. And there you go, chapter 1.